Hey there, witches. So, as promised, I wanted to make a video all about the ethics of love spells. In my Facebook group, there is a lot of debate happening on a regular basis about love spells and the ethics of love spells. And there seems to be a lot of really base level understanding of what a love spell is and of the ethical energetic components of performing a love spell. But it feels like it's a lot of repeated or regurgitated information. And so I wanted to just pop over, make a clarifying video, put some information out there, and then everybody's allowed to utilize that information, go within themselves and figure out what it is that it means to them and what they want to do about it. Okay, so you've probably all seen the meme that's like, don't perform a love spell. It's not good to begin a relationship with a kidnapping, right? And what this meme is saying is it's saying that love spells are spells that through their inherent nature to a degree override the free will of the person whom you are targeting. So let's break down some of the language a little bit for beginners. The target of a spell is the person that you are casting the spell upon. So it's the person who will be affected by the spell work. It's the person whose energy will be shifted or changed or altered in some way due to the spell work. And so when we are casting a love spell on a person, that person is the target. So for example, if I wanted to do a love spell on another person to make them fall in love with me, they would be the target of my spell. I'm not the target, they are the target, because I am casting the energy upon them to shift their energy in a way that aligns with what I've decided I want it to be. So to a degree, all spell work is overriding free will in some capacity or another. So from the jump, what we have to do is get on board with the concept of shaping reality, because that is what spell work does. Now, this is some high level thinking, and we can break it down and talk about it in a variety of ways. But what I'm trying to say is we are all always contributing to the energy or to the reality that is around us, whether through spell work or not. I mean, you can show up at a place and use certain kind of language when talking to another person, and you are shifting their energy in whatever way that you are intending to through what you're saying to them, how you're talking to them, what's going on in that conversation. It gets more advanced or it gets more theoretical the higher you climb up that ladder in terms of becoming more mystical about things. But on a baseline, whenever we're going into a conversation or a situation or a circumstance with the intention to create a certain outcome, we are affecting free will to a degree. And that's not me really being nitpicky. That's me pointing something out that maybe people don't really like to think about, which is when you have an agenda about any kind of conversation, you are in essence spellcasting. It's just that you're not taking out your magical tools and intentionally doing a ritual in the comfort of your own home or spaces. So if you don't like the idea, and I think that people are going to misunderstand what I'm saying here, because I'm not saying necessarily that we are all already casting spells or shifting energy and therefore whatever we want to do magically is just fine. What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to highlight to you is, you are likely already operating in your life in a way that is impacting the free will of other people. If you're showing up to a certain conversation with a certain outcome in your heart, and you are trying to get the conversation to go in that direction, you are already impacting the free will. Is it bad inherently to impact the free will of others is a question that I want you to discuss with yourself, because sometimes other people, whether it's love related or not, they want or need or are inviting in your input. They want or need or are inviting in words from others that will help them shape their own reality and will help them draw their own conclusions. Occasionally we have conversations with people that where they haven't requested our opinion, and yet our opinion does change their mind about something. And so this is a very basic kind of shadow work point or self work point for you, to get clear with yourself. Where am I in my own life already? Kind of tilting, shifting, morphing situations around me to be more in alignment with my free will and maybe less in alignment with the free will of the person who I'm talking to. You'll notice that if you ever have had a conversation with me, I will only ever jump in and say, and share my opinion or give my advice in a couple ways. One, if you're paying me to talk to me because you are a coaching client of mine or a intuitive client of mine, and you have literally paid or hired me to receive my opinion, in that case, of course, I will share it with you. Two, if we are having a conversation and you are just kind of talking about your life, I will say, do you want my insight, or do you just kind of need to vent about this? Or I will just keep things surface level unless or until I have permission from the person I'm speaking to share my opinion. And this is because I've done this level of work that I'm talking to you about, where I've said, when am I showing up in life with an agenda, and how can I get right with myself about that agenda, and how can I make sure I'm only pushing an agenda if the person I'm speaking to agrees to it. Because see, for me, the conclusion I've come to is that consent deeply matters to me. I want to only shape someone's world if they have opted into hearing my point of view. Now, there's a component to that where it's kind of like the question itself is a little bit leady, meaning it's hard for someone to say, no, I don't want your opinion, if you are saying, well, do you want to hear what I have to say about this? So even asking the question can be a little bit agenda pushing, but the important part is that you are giving their free will a chance to opt in. But either way, it's a conversation for you to have with yourself that says, do I want to infect or shape the free will of somebody else? And if so, okay, because it's already happening like all the time. And this is why getting consent conversationally, having awareness over your own agendas when you're talking to someone is important, okay? Because we can and do constantly mold the world around us at all times. So we need to know what we're doing and why, and we need to get right with what we're doing and why, okay? So that's just that part of it. Now, for love spells, the reason people have a problem with them is because it is a consent thing, right? If someone has been clear and that they are not interested in a relationship with you, there is a large number of witches and just women or men or people in general, non-binary people, all humans in general, who believe that really consent is a critical part of relationship, that have an issue with love spells because consent is a critical part of relationship to those people. And now this is something for you to decide unto yourself. If you are considering doing a love spell, the reason that people are taking issue with it is because what you would be doing, like I'm a pirate, what you would be doing in that situation is you would be saying, I'm going to take over the energy of this relationship, and I'm going to go ahead and make it infused with what I want it to be infused with. And so, of course, if I have said to someone, I'm not interested in a relationship with you, and listen, I want you to think about this, okay? Anytime you're going to be performing a spell of any kind on anybody else, I want you to put yourself in the position of the person who is the target of your spell, and I want you to say to yourself, would I be all right with this? Because if you're doing a spell and you wouldn't be all right with it, and if it's a justice-seeking or baneful magic spell, we'll get to that in a second in another video. But in all other spell work kind of opportunities or situations, I really do need you to say to yourself, would I be all right being on the receiving end of this if the situation was reversed? Now, this requires a lot of honesty and integrity with yourself, because it's hard to hear that a person that you are very interested in doesn't feel the same way. It's hard to hear that they don't want to reciprocate in the same capacity that you do. It's hard to hear that they're not interested in the kind of relationship that you believe in your mind would be like ideal or perfect, or you could see the whole thing playing out, or you could be really happy together, or whatever the case may be, it is hard to know that they are saying no to that. And that is usually what draws you to want to do a love spell. This compelling fear of rejection, this concept that you have that, like, if only they understood, if only they could see, if only whatever, all of these thoughts and perspectives on your side make it so compelling for you to want to lean into the love spell, to want to do the love work, because you want to shift their perspective. But there is a degree of respecting someone where they're at that is important for you to consider, okay? Now, that said, there's a lot of different practitioners. There's a lot of different walks of witchcraft. There are many different paths. And there's only a couple few that really say love spells are condemnable. You really shouldn't do them. Wicca is really big on what's known as the Reed of Three. And the Reed of Three is basically the concept that everybody's sort of heard about, but I really don't think anybody fully understands, that says whatever you put out there is going to bounce back at you. I guess the threefold is the Reed of Three, right? It's going to come back at you threefold. I mean, sure, a lot of people believe that. There's a lot of witches that truly live that way. But when people are rolling up onto other people's posts and they're commanding them to believe in this Reed of Three or follow this bounce back rule, whether or not I agree that the work shouldn't be done, I will still defend the person's right to not believe in the bounce back rule, because quite honestly, that's not how I was taught. That's not how many of us were taught. There's a lot of sects of witch work that just honestly don't believe in that, and they don't operate that way, and it's just not part of their practice. And that is valid too. Fundamentally, this fear of this bounce back rule is halting a lot of you in your own growth and your own capacity to become the kind of witch that you're supposed to be. If you are operating out of that much fear, if you are really struggling to be okay with the work that you're casting out, if you are afraid to do certain things in your practice because you don't want them bouncing back on you, that's a signal to you to get right with yourself, to dig within the self, and to do some healing and some work. Because if you are right with your spell work, if you are in alignment with your spell work, you're not going to have an issue with anything bouncing back on you. If your intention is clear, if your fundamental kind of energy about the spell is clear, if you have done the work ahead of time that you're supposed to do before you cast any kind of work, to say to yourself, what am I doing and why? Am I on board with the spell that I'm casting? Then what is there for you to fear? So fundamentally, this is why I'm always saying witch work and spell work go hand in hand, right? Because they need to. They have to. You can't cast a spell if you don't know what you are casting. Well, you can cast a spell if you don't fully know what you are casting, but this is where the problems come in. If you haven't fully thought it through and you haven't really figured it out, then that is why you would be having an issue with the outcome. So let's say that you think that you want a love spell. You think that you want to entice somebody to love you on a deeper level, or to be interested in you in a way that they aren't currently. And you put that spell out there and it comes back to you in some type of way that now they're like maybe too interested in you, or it's causing problems in the rest of your life some way or in some capacity, and you can't handle it. What you haven't done is thought through the outcome. What you haven't done is said to yourself, what do I actually need? What space am I actually trying to fill with myself?